Hebrews 12, 1-2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily entangles, and run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. The opening word, therefore, draws the mind back to what has just been declared. The preceding testimony is a sweeping record of those who lived by faith, men and women who anticipated what had not yet been brought to its unveiled completion. Their lives stood as witnesses, not merely of endurance, but of expectation. They looked ahead to what was promised but not yet realized in their time. This cloud of witnesses is not presented as passive observers, but as those whose lives testify to the certainty of what God had spoken. Their faith pointed forward, reaching toward a consummation that lay ahead of them. What they anticipated, the hearers of this letter were now standing at the threshold of. The long-awaited fulfillment was no longer distant, but imminent. Because of this, the exhortation is given to lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily entangles. The language reflects not a general moral struggle in abstraction, but something specific to that generation, a hindrance tied to the old order that was passing away. There remained a pull backward toward what was familiar, toward a system that had been rendered obsolete by the accomplishment of Christ. This sin entangles because it resists the transition from shadow to substance, from promise to fulfillment. The call to run with endurance the race set before us carries the imagery of a determined progression toward a defined goal. This race was not indefinite. It had a set course and a nearing conclusion. The participants were not striving toward an uncertain outcome, but pressing forward toward what had already been secured and was about to be fully revealed. The endurance required was tied to the closing moments of an age, as the old covenant order was fading and the new stood ready in its unveiled completeness. At the center of the passage is the directive, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of faith. He is both the origin and the completion, the one who began the work and brought it to its intended end. What the faithful of old anticipated, he has accomplished. There is no fragment left incomplete, no portion awaiting human contribution. The faith once expressed in promise has reached its fulfillment in him. He endured the cross, bearing its shame, not as an end in itself, unfought, but in view of the joy set before him. That joy was the realization of what had been foretold, the bringing in of what the prophets spoke, the establishment of what the former covenant could only foreshadow. The suffering was the pathway, but the enthronement was the conclusion. He has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. This is the declaration of completion. The seated position signifies that the work is finished. There is no ongoing sacrifice, no unfinished task remaining. What was required has been accomplished in full. The system that depended on repeated offerings has been brought to its end because the perfect offering has been made. Thus, within these verses, there is a movement from anticipation to fulfillment, from endurance to completion, from promise to realized reality. The witnesses looked forward, the Son fulfilled, and the audience stood at the moment where what had been long awaited was coming into its full and final expression.